kind of get started, and we're going to
Sure.
make it kind of an open Q&A, because a lot of this is a discussion for families who are, part of the U.S. diving program. And I think, like a lot of other parents, it's sort of, where is that path? You get thrown into something, your kid becomes really good at it. All of a sudden, the level gets higher and higher, the demands get more and more. And how do you balance everything and keep perspective on, training, academics, traveling, different layers? And I think that, it's great to hear from divers themselves, but also parents and families who are, and there's nothing better than to talk to the people, who have been at the top, who understand what that top of the mountain looks like, and then what's also on the other side beyond that, and how it builds, not just character, but kind of the training positions you for life. And I think knowing that is very different than years ago, when it was kind of the all or nothing, like that, life doesn't end after the Olympic Games. And, Lee joining us is huge, having spoken to you about where US diving, is where it wants to go, and ways to build that community, because community is such an important and strong word, even in an individual sport. And I think that, being able to galvanize people together with experiences like this, to talk to, people at the top, it can be lonely all around, even when you're on different teams. It's, having been an individual sport person myself, I think I'll, Lee, I don't know if you want to say a couple words. I think most of the people on here probably know who you are, but if you want to kind of do a quick intro, and then I'm still blown away by Michael's accolades, so I'll get into that. But Lee, if you want to start us off, maybe.
Yeah, just very quickly. So I'm president of USA Diving, and it's a pleasure to join this, because you put it very well when you say community. It's more than just culture. It truly is community, and it's bringing people together in a common way that allows everybody to see from a unique perspective that not a lot of the world can see. And so when you've got the ability to grab folks like Michael and Abby and different people, and really get their perspective from those who have been there and now have seen it from not just once, but twice, or maybe even more than twice, it becomes a different avenue for some people to have that. Many of us did not have that perspective, didn't get somebody who was a mentor, so to speak. And so the opportunity to listen and to learn from is, I think, a great opportunity. So I'm going to mute myself, because I can't wait to hear what everybody's got to say. And if you need me for anything at all, I'm here. Just ask. Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you so much, Lee. And, in getting involved, how this all came about, I'll give a little background on the Institute for Civic Leadership. Is actually a nonprofit that started to help really young athletes understand how to balance, training for their dreams and bringing top mentors together, but really focused around character building and education. And years ago, we partnered with the Dwight School that my family had been involved with for over 100 years. And we really wanted to bring about an opportunity to create a virtual and hybrid school for grades 6 through 12, where students could join and their academics would actually be tailored to what their passions are. Because when you are diving, it's kind of all consuming, but at the same time, academics are really critical. And if you can find ways to integrate the application of what you're learning in school with what you're doing, what your training is, they don't have to be separate. Because we were just talking about growing up, whether it's nutrition, everything was in sort of different boxes. Whereas I think now we know that it's forming the whole. That for divers, the brain, the mental side, the mental and emotional side is a huge factor beyond just the training. So, we created ICL Academy diving for those divers that really wanted to be part of a community that could support each other, but also build academics around a foundation where they could train as well. And we're super honored to be here and be able to help put these together with Yuli. And again, we believe in having champions. Hearing from the horse's mouth is incredible. So for those of you, you probably all know the stats, but it still blows me away. We have Michael Hixon here joining us, 2-time Olympic silver medalist, 3-time NCAA champion, and 10-time junior champion. I didn't even know you had juniors for that. did you just like repeat years? Like, were you a forever? That's pretty wild.
Thanks. Yeah, no, junior career is really important to me. That was actually one of the first things. My mom was my junior coach, and one of the things we talked about was a lot of kids who are, at the senior level are successful at a young age just stop doing junior diving, and she wouldn't allow me to. I think part of that was making sure that you stay a kid, and then the other part was learning how to be at the highest level. So you go to those senior national championships when you're 15. You're not trying to win; you're trying to final, but you still have to go to junior nationals and try to win, and then go to international meets and try to be on the podium and try to win again. So all valuable stuff.
I mean, it is absolutely awesome. So I know a little bit of background. So the way that I kind of frame these, and it probably rings true to families here, we want to have as many questions as we can. I think there's a lot of, questions that parents, that kids want to ask about directly to you and your experience. We kind of frame this around at ICL, we have 6 Ps, and the 6 Ps are, how do you take what you're passionate about and actually really make it your purpose? Because purpose is such a strong word. And then how do you create a process, right? So many families are like, what are those different stages, how you evolve from a young age, the difference between being, a 13-year-old to when you're now 18, going to those different levels in the right process. How do you gain that perspective, with coaching and peers and getting perspective? And then we'll talk a little bit about perseverance, because there is never a hockey stick approach. Even it's so funny, right? I get to read these accolades, like the medals and the wins, but I can guarantee you that we'll hear about some pretty huge challenges faced and overcome. And then at the end of the day, the last P is really personalization. How do you embody it in yourself, and where do you go from there? Because you're not going to be identified just as a Olympic diver for the rest of your life. How do you really take that to springboard into what's next? We have Dr. Meredith Gray here as well. Is Abby has joined us? She is coming in from hospital rounds. How are you? Welcome.
Hey,
Great to see you.
good to see you guys. I was not anticipating working tonight, but got called in to cover for someone. So I will participate for as long and as much as I can.
I love that. We were just kind of going through accolades of Michael, and so I think many of you probably also recognize Abby McGrath, a 2012 silver medalist. I think NCAA champion as well. Attended amazing university at Duke. And anything you remember specifically from the junior career that you want to mention? I don't know if I don't know if there is such a thing as topping 10-time junior national champion. You probably had a couple junior wins, I'm sure, Abby. Oh, and Lee is here as well. I think Lee shut up right before there, but Lee and Abby probably go back.
Yeah, I don't remember how many junior wins. Not 10, probably. I'm sure Mikey beat me in that.
I mean, unbelievable. I couldn't be happier, because you guys represent kind of everything, right? You have that junior career through college, understanding the academics. NCAAs are great, being part of a team, and then translating that to the Olympics and actually medaling it's pretty mind-blowing. So congratulations all around. And then after the fact, right? Going into business, going into medicine, and applying what you learn both from school and from your training into what you do. That's really at the crux of it. So I was just about to get started with Michael, but you're on a limited time. So, you never know when a alarm goes off. So Abby, if you want to kind of start us off, how your mindset is, kind of how this began. How did you turn your passion kind of into your purpose? And, what type of process did you have as a junior, and also maybe some challenges that you faced?
Yeah. So I started off as a gymnast and then switched over to diving in 2004, I think. And, as a gymnast, I always wanted to be an Olympic gymnast. I watched the 96 Olympic team, was like, that's what I want to do when I grow up. And so when I quit gymnastics and started diving, I kind of thought that dream was no longer possible. But got better at diving and kind of realized that maybe my Olympic dream was still alive. And so I trained throughout high school, and in high school, I trained twice a day. I'm from Columbus, so it was with the U.S. Elite Diving Team at the time. It's now Ohio State Diving Club. And was really fortunate that my high school was kind of allowed me to do both practice in the morning and leave early in the day to train for a second time in the afternoon. And then I ultimately lost an earpod. My coach from Columbus, Drew Johansson, who's now the Indiana University head coach, became the head coach at Duke. And so that was my junior year of high school. And I was like, Mom, Dad, I really want to make the Olympics and I want to move to Durham, North Carolina to continue this dream. And so they made me write a pros cons list of why they should allow me to finish high school online and move to Durham, North Carolina. And I did that. And I didn't end up making the team in 2008, but sorry, it's shift change. So a lot of people might be coming in and out behind me if you don't mind.
You're on set for Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah. So I didn't end up making it in 2008, but it was a really great learning experience for me. And I think, I had the foundation of training. I ended up signing to Duke on a scholarship where I continued to train with Drew and won NCAA title along the way. And ultimately made the Olympic team in 2012, which was my senior year of college. And apart from wanting to be an Olympian, I also really wanted to be either a doctor or a hairdresser. And my parents encouraged me to go the doctor route, which is what I ended up doing, although I do have a passion for hair. And so going into after 2012, when I got a silver medal, I had just like this incredible experience, wanted to do the Olympics again, but also wanted to pursue my passion of becoming a doctor. So I actually trained for the 2016 Olympics while still in medical school. So I, competed in Rio in the individual diving event and placed 12th, and then flew back. It was actually right before the closing ceremonies and started my psychiatry rotation of med school. And then now have since graduated medical school and finished my residency. And I'm an emergency room doctor at Duke University. So kind of a quick overview of my career thus far. But I have to say that, I think I've been fortunate to have coaches who supported me in both my athletic dreams and my academic dreams to help me kind of get to this point.
That's fantastic. Quite a run up to the Olympics, and the dreams are always there. We always have sort of the mantra of like respect tradition, embrace tomorrow, and daring to dream and have the courage to take risks. And those risks you took in seeing that with that gymnastics. I mean, it just, you can follow that trajectory, and it's a testament to you. And I think that idea of character and sort of setting your mind and how to achieve those goals. So congratulations. I think we have a bunch of questions already coming in, but I'll let Michael kind of join in, give a little background about him as well.
Yeah, sure. I guess just thinking about how I got my passion for the sport, it almost sort of felt like by accident. I wanted to play in the NBA until I was probably in middle school, but I stopped growing at 5'8", so that dream was totally not going to work out. But no, my mom was a college diving coach, and I was hanging around the pool, and I would just get in and started diving a little bit here and there, and didn't really take it too seriously until I was about maybe 12 years old, started training 4 or 5 times a week. And then I'll never forget, I made my first international team, and I was actually roommates with Christian Hixon, who Abby knows really well. We were roommates at Junior Worlds, and I would just talk to him about the way he thought about diving. He talked about how serious he was, the way he mapped it out in his mind, how he just had these really ambitious goals. And I was just so inspired. It really changed my life and how I wanted to think about the sport and how I wanted to go about it. And so I think the day I got back from there, I just started training 7 days a week, fully committing myself to that. And that's where I really think my dream for wanting to become an Olympian and really thinking, I can take this sport to the next level if I sort of apply myself in the same way. And so that was a pivotal moment for me. And I went to, college. I went to Texas for my freshman year, had a really good experience there, decided to transfer and to Indiana and follow Drew Johansson, very similar to what Abby did going to Duke, but I think 4 years later when he was at Indiana, and just had a great experience there. There's an incredible team, incredible atmosphere, a lot of people really pushing themselves to be at the highest level in diving, as well as the NCAA, and pushing themselves academically as well. And so it was a great mix there. Coach always talks about sport, culture, and education. And I really felt that's what we had there. We had a group of people that wanted to excel in all areas, and we had the opportunity to do that. My best friend and roommate there, his name is James Connor, and he's from Australia. And he would always joke, there's really nothing like the NCAA anywhere else in the world, but you have the opportunity when you turn 18. Most people decide, okay, either I'm going to go to university and stop playing my sport, or I'm going to pursue my sport full time and let everything else go. And we have the opportunity here to go to the NCAA and fully pursue your sport and your academics where nothing really has to take a back seat. And so it was a really special opportunity. Went through that, made the Olympic team in 2016, had a good result there, won a silver medal in synchro, which was pretty exciting for me. Decided to keep going. I graduated in 2018, so I had a few more years of NCAA diving. So pursued that, and then decided to give it one more run and make a run to Tokyo, which ended up being 21 instead of 20. But yeah, time well spent and really enjoyed myself.
Wow, that's fantastic. So you guys kind of got you to college. So I'm gonna kind of go back in time a little bit to that juniors, because the way that you express that, I'd love to find out kind of what your process was. You know, obviously rituals, habits, training are all so critical in diving. I mean, maybe, you know, if you can go back to you as I think the question I would ask is, if you could go back to yourself as a 15-year-old, what advice would you have? What were you doing at the time? Kind of a quick schedule, you know, when you really decided to dedicate yourself. And then are there anything you go back to yourself as a 15-year-old and talk to, do differently, focus on, do the same? I guess we'll start with Abby. You guys are both smiling, but we'll start with Abby.
I knew Mikey when he was 15, and I think we were both a little bit rebellious in our teenage years. But I think that, you know, I recognize that the benefit of academics and how ultimately my diving days would end. And I feel fortunate that I even got to dive into my mid-20s, which is not typical for divers, because there's just really not a longitudinal career for the sport. And so I think I realized that academics would be ultimately what would provide a career for me, and how important that was. I was fortunate because my high school was pretty flexible with me, because my principal was my neighbor. And so they let me use my study hall time to be at the beginning of the day so that I could go to practice in the morning and then present the second period. And so I got to do a couple of my electives as online courses, but it really wasn't all that popular back then. And I don't want to date myself too much, but I did have not dial-up internet by the time I was doing online high school, but not that far out of that. So something that some young people these days might not even understand. If somebody picked up the phone, it would literally pull you off the internet. And so I feel like I was sort of on the frontier of that. And it's kind of a method that I feel like other countries utilize a lot more, like a lot of some of the European countries and China, they use like online school or kind of different methods to allow for more academic and athletic pursuits. And so I guess going back to your question, I'm kind of running off topic. 15-year-old Abby, advice I would give.
We definitely got 15-year-old Michael. We're going to get to him in a second, the rebellious one. But let's yeah.
I think I would say that I wish I had told myself not to put too much pressure on myself in competitions. I think in junior diving, you have so few opportunities to compete. You may have an invitational, and then you have like regional, zones, nationals, and each one feels so important to get to that next step. And so I was really, really hard on myself. And I think that I wish I hadn't been so hard on myself. I think college diving was really beneficial because you had dual meets week after week after week. And it really gives you the opportunity to train on tired legs and compete on tired legs. And it really built my confidence, which helped me, perform better on the national scene and ultimately the Olympics.
That's a great sort of segue also. I mean, that difference, right? Every junior thinks that it's like every match, every meet is sort of like life or death, which in some ways it has to be, but at the end of the day, it's a long process, and kind of maintaining that focus of just getting better, just like improving and how it goes. But I appreciate that. And we'll get back to kind of the education and the online learning and, trying to integrate to create a platform that's sort of most reasonable to help support divers in the academic, the character side, and just balancing everything. Because I think balance is a critical component that is tough to do when you're pushing kind of that as high as you can go. So we'll turn it back to Michael about, 15-year-old you, or you can pick any era, you know, the sort of 15 is a solid age.
Sure. Yeah. I think the biggest advice I'd have for myself is to understand the long game and have a little bit of patience. I think Abby was probably very similar to me in terms of wanting success in the sport. Patience was not a word that could be used to describe probably either one of us, certainly myself. I wanted to be good right away, and that meant pushing for dives probably before I was ready, maybe having expectations that were just beyond what I should have been trying to do at that specific time. But I think taking a step back and understanding, okay, it's not really about this next meet that I have in front of me, but how can I set a foundation that will allow me to be really successful in the long run? Because if your goals are, I want to make an Olympic team 6 years from now, then you need to plan, how am I going to set a foundation that's going to allow it to happen? And so really focusing into the fundamentals and the foundation that will allow you to excel later on is so important. I think so many times we get caught up in, okay, I'm all in on winning this junior national championship. And that sort of goes to the detriment of making sure your fundamentals are right. You're trying to do harder dives, you're trying to do whatever, just, you know, that goes to the cost of your fundamentals. And so I don't know, I think understanding the long game is really important. And then, you know, so I guess sort of adversarially what Abby was saying, one thing I thought that was really important in my junior career, and I continued with me in the college career, is that every single meet I went to, I treated like it was the highest level meet I could be at, like it was Olympic Games. And a lot of people talk about struggling competing in the sport of diving, and it's an imperfect sport. Even when you do your best list, you always feel like there's something you can improve on. But I feel like if you go into every single meet trying to have the best possible outcome, and you're absolutely trying to hold yourself to a high standard, I think it creates a level of practice that you can then attain a really high level of competition. So I always, if it was a throwaway dual meet on a Saturday at Indiana, I treat it like it was the Olympics, because then when I got to the Olympics, I'd practice that over and over again. And so you get that feeling of what it's like to be in those high level meets.
I love that. I mean, it's so funny to look back, and I shared with Michael that I'm actually in Palm Desert with some of our tennis players, and it's a tournament that I played in 32 years ago, and it was like everything. I just remember that was like absolutely my world, and that idea of focusing on the long game and building, that's why the mental side I think is so critical, right? I mean, there's so many physical divers that people can train, but like the mental side of it becomes so challenging day in, day out. I'd love to hear from, well, before we bring some of the students up, we have a lot of questions starting to form already. And I know Abby has to wait for a shift, so we may throw some your way, but, if you can go back to any of those moments, the tough ones, right? That when the perseverance comes in, any of those setbacks, or can you remember a time where you had to really like sit back, question, or kind of realign your thinking when things were not, like I said, not hockey sticking for you? And how you kind of overcame those obstacles.
I'll start. Okay, so in 2016, part of the Olympic process is that you go to the World Cup to qualify spots for your country to compete in the Olympics. And so I was competing in both synchronized and individual to get spots for Team USA. And I had just won a silver medal in the previous Olympics in synchronized. And then at the World Cup was the first spot that didn't make it. And so that was devastating to feel like I had, I wasn't going to have the chance to defend what I had previously done. But I was like, that's okay. I still have the individual event. I can stand up. I can, still have an opportunity to qualify an Olympic spot for Team USA, and then hopefully, go to the Olympic trials and go in that spot. And I was, again, the first person who didn't qualify the Olympic spot in 2016 at the World Cup. And I was like devastated. I just like was so embarrassed, and, just like the lowest of lows. And I felt, and that was in February of 2016. And I was like, well, if there's only one Olympic spot, Cassidy Cook was dominating at the time, what's the point of me continuing on through the summer? And sometimes they give extra spots to different countries. I'm not really sure what their formula is, but they end up giving spots. So anyway, I was contemplating just quitting straight up in February, 4 months short of Olympic trials. And after I took a little time away from the pool, decided I wanted to keep going, and competed at the Olympic trials, going in knowing there was only one spot, hoping that I could, win the trials and be that one person. And then after semifinals, before the finals, I was in second place going into the finals. The International Olympic Committee told USA that we were going to get a second spot. So I'm glad that I didn't quit. I ended up getting second at the Olympic trials and going to the Olympic Games and being the only American who made it into the finals. And so it was like a moment where I really had to dig deep and where I really questioned, why I was doing the sport. Was it just because I wanted to win? And I ultimately realized I just loved it so much and I wanted to see my career through the end. And so that was a real challenge for me. And I definitely felt like my lowest of lows at a meet that, 15-year-old Abby would have dreamed to be at.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing how, it shifts. It's a great story. I mean, of perseverance and, not giving up. Michael, any ones on your side stick out?
Yeah, I don't think there's a sport that quite humbles you like the sport of diving. You reflect back on all the moments. I think I've had almost more bad moments than I've had good moments because it is just such a difficult sport to be consistent with. But I think back my senior year of high school, I was going to the Olympic trials, and I had these grand ambitions of my mind of, putting myself up there as one of the guys that could, if not make a team, be relatively close to it. I was certainly probably the only person in the world who thought that was a possibility. But anyways, I go there and I think first dive, buckle, fail dive. Next dive, buckle, hit the board, stitches in my ankle.
Oh.
And it was definitely not the outcome that I had envisioned. And really humbling for me at that moment to say, like, okay, I am about as far as one can possibly be from making this team at that specific meet. I'm as far as you can possibly be. How am I gonna make this a reality for me the next 4 years? And so, just like Abby talked about, in those moments, you absolutely question if you want to be a part of the sport anymore, if it's worth it to you, and really sitting down and thinking, okay, well, am I doing this just because I want to be an Olympian, or am I doing this because I love the sport and I love showing up every day and working hard and getting better? And I decided that was something that I loved and that I wanted to do, and fixing the things that were the issues at that time in my diving, that was all possible. And so just reconnecting to the sport and deciding that's what I wanted to pursue and pushing ahead 4 years later to be in a good spot to make the team. But yeah, this is it's a humbling sport. Every single diver has moments that are catastrophic. You think about people like Tom Daly sets the Olympic record in the prelim at Rio and doesn't make the final, or Ilya Zakharov wins gold in 2012 and then doesn't make the final in Rio. And just, you can name every single diver in the world at any level, and they've all had incredibly humbling moments. So knowing why you want to do the sport, why you love it, coming back to that all the time, that if that's your foundation, I think that creates the ability to have longevity in the sport.
So great. We're going to start asking some questions from and bringing up some of the students. Lee, is there while you have these guys here, any questions or any comments from your end that you want to jump in with? Do you think may be relevant for all the group here?
I think it's important, and I'd love to hear both their perspective on that, the power and the empowerment you get from being able to step up and stand up after you've gotten knocked down. It means so much, because no one's ever going to dive for the rest of their life. It just doesn't, or at least not at this level. And the lessons that you learn have to do more with picking yourself back up than anything. So I think, how do you feel now knowing that you can actually do those things? Mike, you put it real well. There's tons of bad times. I remember those times, getting lost on a twister and busting an eardrum or something, right? How did you pick yourself up after those things? Abby talked a little bit about it. What did you use for motivation?
Yeah, I mean, tough times don't last, tough people do. And I think remembering that, and like I said, coming back to why you want to do what you're doing. And that's not just diving, that's whatever you're pursuing at the time, whether it's, relationships with people, or maybe you're pursuing something academically or professionally, whatever it is. I know that's a way off professionally for the kids listening to this call, but whatever you're pursuing, understanding, okay, why did I want to do this in the first place? What was so important to me that made me want to pursue that? And coming back to, okay, yeah, this is why I want to do it. This cycle that gets me up and to the right, it's going to go like this. It's going to be up and down the entire time on the way to get there. But understanding, okay, in this long term, when I want to be at this place, persevering now, giving everything I have in these tough times, that's going to allow me to get back into a place where I want to be, and I can achieve what I set out to do in the first place.
Well said. Again, before I bring people up, any little rituals you guys have? I mean, with diving, it's so much, you're so in your head. I mean, I can only imagine, right? Because again, coming from a tennis player that has to play a 3-hour match, they can go out there and it sort of ebbs and flows, and there you are up top, and it's like, it's done like that. You can snap your fingers and the dive is sort of completed. But any rituals you may want to share, kind of visual things that you had that helped you that may be interesting for kids, that they may be interested. And then we're going to start bringing up some students.
Before every dive, well, I would sing and listen to music most of the time. And then before every dive, I'd take a deep breath and say, "You've got this," kind of as I exhaled.
All right, you got this. I like that. The power of positive reinforcement.
That's awesome. I remember, pretty early, I was in high school, pretty early in my career, I was talking to Jeff Huber, who was the coach at Indiana prior to Drew. And he would talk about how important your emotional response was, how important it would be if you competed well when you were, either angry or humble or whatever this emotion was you had to tap into that allowed you to compete your best. That's what it had to be. And so, Kirk, you'll like this. Before every meet, I would watch the 30 for 30 on Jimmy Connors. It was him against the world. That's how he felt. That's how I wanted to feel, right? And so just watching that, feeling like that's who I was going to go out there and be on that day. It was me against everybody, and just to embrace that, I always thought that really helped me out quite a bit.
That's really interesting. It's so interesting how different mindsets for different people, what calms them, what gets them pumped up, and it's such an important part. And remembering, kind of, you got this, you can do it. I was talking about it. There's so many ways, there's so many similarities with sports, and obviously we'll tie it into kind of education and how you apply it. Some people get really nervous for test taking, and it's actually the same concept, right? How you can sort of be calm, breathe, you're prepared. How do you calm yourself? So we had some good questions. Can I bring up, see who wants to go first? Avery, you guys might know Avery Warble. Avery, do you want to ask a question to the group? How you doing, Avery? I know that I've seen some videos of Avery diving. It's pretty wild watching some of the students, and it's pretty mesmerizing. Avery, you're on mute, but if you want to jump up and ask your question, or we can have her on hold, and Tracy can ask a question. I'm seeing the questions here; they're fantastic. All right, Avery. If not, should we go to Tracy? Do you want to come up, Tracy, and ask this good one here?
Hi, gang.
Tracy Bird.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Hi, Abby. Hi, Michael. Hi, everyone. So, gosh, my question, let's see if I can find it again. Let's see, chat. I think it was reflecting back, what stands out to you as being the most meaningful and best part of your diving careers?
I would say meaningful and best part is the friendships that I've made, and the people that I've met along the way, yourself included, Tracy, and Mikey. We go way back, and I am just so grateful for those friendships, and that would be it.
Yeah, I have to agree with Abby. I never thought I would say that too, especially early in my career. That was definitely not something that I felt was the main priority for me. But looking back, the best experiences I had, it wasn't really my own success. It was success that I shared with other people and moments I share with other people. I always tell people my favorite meet of all time was Darian Schmidt and I. And Darian was my best friend. I was the best man at his wedding. And we were in our home pool in Indiana, both trying to make the senior national team for the first time. And we were able to have that moment together, and he dove great, and in front of his hometown, his family, and just being there with him in that moment was so special to me. So yeah, it was absolutely the relationships you share with people moving forward in the sport. Absolutely.
And I would add to that. We talked about just getting on the call, building a sense of community, right? That we're all kind of in it, that individual sports, but as you look back, those like-minded people, those people that train that didn't even necessarily make the Olympics, right? It's the camaraderie you build. I don't know if your college roommate you trained with made it all that way, but that's still, these are pillars of your life. So Avery fixed the mute button. Avery is there. Maybe yelling at her little brother. I don't know. Avery, how are you?
Hey, Kurt, can you hear me?
I can. Is that? Oh, I think we may have just gotten ixnayed on that. But Abby, did you want to answer that one as well? I don't know, Tracy's question. Oops, Avery lost the line.
Yeah, I think you know, I'm so grateful for all the people I've met and the places that I've got to go, because diving really it takes you to you know, pools all over the world, and I feel like I have friends all over the world, and yeah, just really grateful for that.
I mean, it's so interesting too, that traveling, that idea of what it exposes you to, because when you're in the moment, right, it's like the competition, it's winning, it's pushing yourself, and you're like, wow, I get to go all over the world. We have some people here from Mexico who are gonna ask some questions. Here's I don't know if it's Luis or Lewis, but if you want to jump on and ask a question, everyone.
Hi, nice to meet you all. Thank you so much for this opportunity. In fact, I have two questions now. I have one. The first was, what was for you to compete against Mexican drivers? Okay, if this kind of competence made you better divers, okay, because usually Mexico performs well, isn't it? And so it's a kind of rivalry. Now it's in soccer too, but well, in diving, it is always. It has been always. And the other is that I just wonder if today a child in the USA that starts in diving at 12 can be a diver, or they are starting younger, because I think in Mexico, if a diver starts at 12, it will be a little bit old to make this all way to be a kind of good diver. Thank you.
You're absolutely right. Mexico is so competitive in diving, and have always had really great divers in kind of all of the events. And I have some good friends that are Mexican divers. And I think in terms of the age, 12 is not too old. I think it depends on the background you have. I didn't start diving until I was 13, but I was a gymnast. So I had a kind of that air sense and that acrobatic nature. So I was able to translate that to the pool pretty easily. Although sports these days are getting more and more competitive, and I feel like people are specializing at younger and younger ages. So
yes, that is the point.
It's definitely harder. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the first question, yeah, it's a great thing that the Mexican team is incredible, and they've shown that at the Olympics year after year. But it's great. We get to start diving at a junior level against people from all over the world at a pretty young age. In Mexico specifically, I remember diving in Pan Am Games when I was 10 years old, and you compete against those kids for the rest of your life, which is pretty exciting. But yeah, probably from the very beginning, Mexico is such a great program that it sort of opens your eyes when you go from a national competition to an international competition, and you see divers from Mexico putting up these great performances, and you realize the standard is bigger than what you see just at the national meets. And so Mexico, as well as many other countries, it's special to see that. In terms of certainly specialization, I think everyone sort of has their own path. You've seen a lot of people be successful getting serious about diving later. My synchro partner in Rio, Sam Dorman, didn't get that serious about diving until later in his life. And even myself, I didn't really start training seriously until I was maybe 13 or 14 years old. And so I think accessibility is tough. Not everybody is going to find their way into an elite program when they're 5 years old and have that path mapped out for them the entire way. I think some people start a little bit later, but don't be discouraged by that. I think as long as you understand what you want to do and how you can be competitive, what you need to change to do that, I think it's possible. I think my hero of all time is Mark Lindsay, and he started diving in high school and ended up winning a gold medal. And so I don't think you should limit yourself based on the starting point, as long as you're thoughtful about how you can improve and get to the level you want.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you guys. All right, there's Jesse. Not sure if Avery,
guys.
you got it going on here.
No, I was just curious from a parent perspective, if you guys could chat a little bit about maybe the struggles or the benefits that you had of going through, an online or quasi-online program back when you were in the early days of high school, and maybe how you would have benefited from a platform and a curriculum like ICL and what it has to offer. Things have changed. COVID has fast-tracked, online learning a little bit. And if you were in this type of environment today versus what you were doing, and Michael, your situation was slightly different than Abby's, but have you given any thought as to how you would see some benefits to that?
And Jesse's stealing my thunder a little bit, but I appreciate that. Obviously, our goal is to try to link kids with their passion, build those bridges between what you're focusing on and your academics. But I would love to get into that and sort of how you look and what you would have liked to have had even more in terms of that balance between, the sort of physical, mental, academic side all coming together for you.
So I'll go first. So I did kind of a hybrid normal school and online school. I took a couple classes throughout my freshman, sophomore, and junior year. And that was just because my principal allowed me to do it. Sorry if it's kind of loud around me. And then my senior year, I did entirely online school when I moved to Durham, North Carolina, but was still able to graduate from my high school in Upper Arlington in Columbus. And I don't think that kind of format, it was a lot of like self-starting. I had to go out and find these classes that I needed to take, how to satisfy all the graduation requirements, and then having a very flexible principal who allowed me to live in another state but graduate from a high school in Ohio. And so I think having a streamlined program that has everything in one, all the resources that come with ICL Academy, the variety of classes, and the network of other athletes who are going through similar things is really incredible, and something that I would have loved to have had. And I think I probably would have taken advantage of that, particularly my senior year when I was in North Carolina and trying to navigate teaching myself classes that I picked up online.
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge though, right? I mean, I think that's, again, the purpose of ICL is how can you balance it where they understand what you're doing and still get the benefits of live. I mean, it's tough to be a self-starter in anything, but also when you're picking and choosing your own things, or your teachers don't know that you're a diver or what you're doing. So it is, a little different. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I'm sorry, I have to step away, but
No problem. Abby.
Feel free to ask me any questions at any time. If you guys want to share my email or anything with any of the young divers, I'm happy to stay in touch.
Abby, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hearts, good luck with that heart transplant right now. Go to work, get it saving lives. But congrats. Thanks so much, Abby. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
See you, Abby.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, again, so, talking about the opportunity, a program like this that actually understands the mindset of divers. I mean, that was our goal, right? Is create an educational environment where you could apply what you're learning in school, where teachers and everyone knows what your passion is, what you're striving for. I don't know if you had that or what the differences were, but you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that was a big thing I was missing. And just to push on 2 points that Abby brought up, just the flexibility in the network. The flexibility is certainly in your training schedule and making everything work. Because if you're training 5 hours a day, it's pretty tough to fit in the 7 to 2 o'clock school that they want you to go to. And so having a schedule that can accommodate that's obviously important, but also just the flexibility of people in your network, like their minds about what you're trying to do, right? So the big thing for me is I'd go to a teacher and I'd say, hey, I'm not going to be here for 2 weeks because I'm going to Junior Worlds. And that was just not something that was understood. Nobody else was doing that. And that's not something that they were typically accommodating. And so you got a lot of pushback on things like that. And so although my high school experience was great, I did 4 years in a public high school and I loved it. I do think I could have absolutely benefited, especially my athletic career, from having the opportunity to lean on people and say, all right, well, then you're going through this as well academically and trying to juggle that in school. Okay, well, maybe I can learn from you and pursue that as well. And so I don't know, I think that so much about this whole experience is accommodating to what you can pursue athletically, but it's also about surrounding yourself with people that are on a similar mission. And that was one thing that was really special for me at Indiana. When I got to Indiana, there were people who were really focused on their academics as well as their athletics. And so having a community that's all pushing for the same thing is a really special thing to be a part of. And I think that's something that ICL does, which is the reason why I'm here speaking tonight, is I think it's a great thing to want to be a part of and to be in that type of a community.
Absolutely. And Lee, you know, having Lee here with, you know, I think what the objectives are of USA Diving and the idea of building that community and having that backbone of a support network that, you know, goes beyond just training together, because it's an inherent understanding of, it's different, right? Like your traditional school, when you show up, the person next to you probably hasn't been training for 2 hours. So there are a couple, I think we're going to bring up Marie, really. We have probably time for 2 more questions. Marie, did you want to come up and ask a question? Because if not, I can ask her question for you. All right. Any visualization techniques that help you stay focused and positive during your meal? Oh, oops, stole the thunder. Sorry, Marie. I don't know if you're coming up, but we can get started on visualization. Anything, yeah, any of those tips, right? Oh,
Yeah.
there she is. Hi, Marie. So I'm sorry. You can ask your question better than I can.
I was just wondering if you guys had any visualization techniques that you guys use to help you prepare for your competition day, like to help settle nerves and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely, Maria. That's a great question. It's something I worked really hard on. The first thing I would say, and this was something I learned a little bit later in my career, I knew how important visualization was, but it was always difficult to make time for it. It's really easy to say, okay, I have practice from 5 to 7. I'm going to go physically be there. But it's tough to say, okay, I need to make sure I block off time every single day to visualize. And the other thing I would say that's really important about visualization, you talked about maybe feeling nervous for a meet or something like that. So much of that is not just what you're doing in the air, right? It's how you feel behind the board. It's how you feel in the warm up. And so one thing I like to do is, as I was visualizing, I'd always visualize my dives, absolutely. But I'd visualize myself in situations. So, okay, I'm standing behind the board. I'm about to do a dive for, you know, last round, front 4.5 in the Olympics. Okay, but I'm going to visualize myself not just on the board doing the dive, but I'm going to do the 2 minutes leading up to it. Okay, I'm behind the board. How do I feel? Who's around me? Jack Law's right there. Okay, you know, kind of nervous. He's a pretty good diver, right? And so just imagining all the situations that you might find yourself in, and then emotionally how you feel. I think the more that you do that, the more comfortable you can get with that. And I always say, people consider themselves good competitors, bad competitors, like it's innate, like you're born with it. And I just don't think that's true. I think it's a skill that you practice, just like anything else. And the more you practice it, the better you get. And so it's the same thing with feeling comfortable in a meet. The more that you put yourself in that situation, the more comfortable you're going to feel over time. And so I think that'd be my recommendation. That's a great question.
That's a really, really good one.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Great. We also people want to know, Mike, what do you do for fun outside of your work and your diving?
Yeah. Well, so when I was at Indiana, especially when I was in college, we were pretty much forbidden from playing basketball because my best friend Darian and I, every single time we drove with a sprained ankle, and I wasn't going to cut it. But love playing basketball. Been doing a little bit more this year for some cross training, which has been awesome. But love playing basketball. Love playing golf. Really, anything where you can get out there and be kind of competitive in a sport is a lot of fun. But I guess beyond that, just I love music and hanging out with my friends. There are 2 things I really love.
It's great. We had a couple of questions come in, Lee, for you about a little bit about, you know, what if you want to plug kind of what you're doing and some of the goals of what you're working on and the idea of bringing this community together more.
Well, we don't have enough time to really delve deeply into that, but I will tell you that we're working actively on developing educational programs that we're going to put on platforms exactly like what you guys have. So this synergy between us working together is really a good one. Some of the opportunity for this program is going to rest on how well can we put really abstract information into really explicit and easy to understand small bites of information and videos, things like that. So we're working on how we take what we've got that's existed for a long, long time, which is sometimes in 20 or 30 minute videos, break it down into things that we can use, and then present it in a real deliverable format for everybody. So that's one thing. The other thing is we've got, an interesting culture. We've got an interesting dynamic in USA Diving that is something that I find very exciting to kind of get to know people and understand what brings them together. I think we've had a lot of things in our history tear us apart, and we spent at least the last 2 years that I've been here trying to put it back together and rebuild. We've had some difficult times that I think we're well past now, but we still got some things, a mountain to climb. Let's put it that way. Great question, by the way. I wish I had more time to get into that.
And I think it is really important. We are entering a new phase, I think, where there is more opportunity, right? Usually there's always a little bit of a clash. I think part of the idea of bringing together best practices on all fronts, and being able to streamline, because now we're living in a different world of social media, and now it's not 20-minute videos, it's 2 minutes on your phone,
Or 30 seconds.
36, exactly. Yeah, the 2 minutes dropped down at 30 seconds. So there is a question about that for Mike about, what tips you have for teenagers, because there's, forever there are distractions, but now with social media and spending time on that, it says, what tips do you have? God, this would be a question for anyone, anywhere, but what do you have to manage what they do on social media? Wow. If you can answer this one, you need to.
I was just going to say, let me get my notepad.
Yeah, correct. So that's
if you want to be an influencer, I'm definitely not the guy to talk to. I'm pretty offline, and especially around big meets and stuff like that, I am incredibly offline. I don't have the apps to my phone or anything like that. I think all that stuff can really be kind of a distraction. There's a lot of positives to it. You can sort of build a brand for yourself if that's something you're interested in, but I think one thing you have to remember is that of everyone's entire life, you see the 1% of what is great in their life. Mm-hmm. And it's so funny. Even within diving, even within the sport itself, of all of their diving, typically you see the 1% of the exceptional dives that they do, they decide to post online. And I've had that conversation with people all the time. There's a big difference between what you see on Instagram and what shows up on the scoreboard. And it's important to remember that just because somebody posts great dives and maybe you see it and it intimidates you, I think you need to understand that that's not necessarily reality. And so being able to step back and say, okay, look, I'm not going to get overwhelmed because of what other people are doing, and I'm just going to focus on what I'm doing and how to make myself better.
Yeah, it's actually a great way of putting it, because the closest diving, my hero, I'd watch Greg Louganis when I was a kid growing up, and I moved to LA, and I remember going to this intensive yoga class, and they said, all right, we have to free form it. And I thought I was so cool because I could kind of do a handstand, and the guy next to me was doing a one-handed handstand. And I was like, that's got to be Luke Skywalker. His body was so fit, whatever. The class ends, and I kind of go to him. I was like, I saw you a couple of places away, and it was Greg Louganis. I think the guy's probably the sickest athlete. He literally was doing a Jedi, one hand, switching hands. And it just shows the diving and the power. I mean, there's so much in diving that I would love. And I know that actually a bunch of our tennis players actually showed up to listen to this, because, we talk about how sports, they coalesce, right? And everyone thinks, all right, my sport is so specific. I got to focus just on this. But there is such a power, as you said, in playing basketball when you don't twist your ankle, or playing soccer, or, having outlets that are going to be beneficial, because there's so much proof now that when you overwork your body in sort of one specific way, it can lead to injury faster. So kind of being able to be nimble and limber and kind of have that outlet that can still support that. And that's what we kind of want to go through, because you get so all consuming. And that was one of the questions that there was here. I think we'll kind of end it out because we're already going over. But Marguerite, are you there? Do you want to ask kind of a final question? Don't know if she's on mute or if that can get unmuted. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Marguerite.
I like your medals in the background there. That looks like a Michael Hixon collection back there. Did you know?
That's bigger than my collection.
There you go. Very cool.
If you ever feel I don't know how to say this, but if you feel like you can't do something, or Like if you can't do something, is there something that you like think or?
The nerves come in, right? Do you ever doubt yourself, or how do you get out of that? I think we're asking, how do you get out of that dark place? Everyone kind of has that fear. I mean, again, I only know that from tennis. When you get the yips, all of a sudden you tighten up all over and you think everything is gone. How do you get yourself back into that positive mindset?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's a great question. And it's like we talked about a little bit earlier, diving is such a humbling sport, right? Even the best divers still smack, even the best divers still have bad days where they don't compete as well as they want to. And I think the biggest thing for me is a lot of the fear and everything like that is it's pretty emotionally driven. And so sometimes taking a step back and thinking, okay, like what are we really dealing with here? Like, well, what are we really looking at for the situation? And it's like, okay, I'm capable of doing this. And I know that, I've seen myself improve in the past. If I want to do this, I know that if I keep doing these skills, I'll get better and better at that and I'll be able to achieve that. And so if it's being scared of a dive, making sure that those buildups are exactly right, that you've been in belts and you're doing all the right things, and you'll be ready for that dive. Or if you have a bad meet, it's okay. Let's go back and evaluate what didn't go so well and where can we improve. But there's so many ups and downs, especially in diving. There's so many ups and downs, and just remembering like, okay, I love this sport. And when I'm good, I'm good. I know how good I can be and I want to get better, and just maintaining that love for the sport is such an important thing. And so that would be my advice on that one.
I love that.
Great question. Thank you.
That's great. Well, I mean, I want to wrap it up and say, not only a huge thank you, but all of you that joined, if you could fill out a survey, we really want to try to, get this going, right? I mean, the opportunity to kind of interact and share and build that community is kind of what we're all about, and being able to offer, the opportunity to be in a school. And because, as you get better in any sport, right, the pressure gets on of how do you balance, as you said, that 7 to 3 o'clock schedule, and in every sport now, to be that high level, there's too much pressure to think I have to balance, I have to sit there for 8 hours when I want to be in the pool, or vice versa. So, here at ICL Academy, and being able to partner with USA Diving and you guys, I think we can build something really special and share, cross information with tennis players and dancers and skiers, because as we talk about, there is so much. And I would argue that the importance of what goes on here, that mental and emotional side, that really differentiates in a lot of ways. I think the physical, you train really hard, you work on that, but when you can, no one can quite master it. We all hope we can, but that mental and emotional side is critical. And I think we can help each other out together in that community. And yeah, I mean, any last words? I thank both of you guys. I don't know, Michael, Lee, if you want to kind of close this out, but it's been really exciting. And all of you that are there, thank you for your questions. And if you can fill out the survey, we want to kind of do many more of these and help kind of build on this.
Yeah, Kurt, I want to say thanks for having me. This has been a blast. Love speaking with you guys. Obviously, a lot of great things going on. I really appreciate what you guys are doing, and I certainly wish I'd had that when I was growing up. I think there's a lot of opportunity in it. Feel free to pass my email along to everyone. Happy to answer any further questions or help anybody out who wants help.
Guys, that is huge. I mean, as a young, I mean, I know you probably know what that means, but seeing, first of all, any Olympian having those accolades and offering to just do that, and I know it's so sincere, and that's why obviously we gelled right away. And I have to tell the audience that in hearing about this program and what ICL wanted to do, and with USA Diving, just that you were so open and supportive, it means the world. Because you remember, I'm not a diver, but still, even as an adult, meeting Greg Louganis, and for me in tennis, if Andre Agassi had, when I was at the same facility as him, if he even looked my way or kind of said a word to me, it was like gospel. So I think we all appreciate that big time. So thank you, Michael. And I think someone out there that asked a question, good luck beating the 10 times junior champion. We'll see what we can do there. And Lee, if you want to close us out, thank you for really putting this together as well. We really appreciate your partnership and support.
I just want to say, you guys, we look forward to good stuff together. This is going to be something great as we move forward. I've got to get to another call, believe it or not, but I wanted to echo what Michael said, which is my contact information. Please pass it along. If anybody has questions or wants to connect on anything, don't hesitate, reach out. I'm always available. Thank you, and
Thanks
have a
so
good
much.
evening.
Have a great night. Hey, good luck, Michael. Be in touch in New York. We'll work stuff out. Take care.
Thanks. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Bye.